Dusty Dvoracek, you see him all the time on ESPN. You hear him on Sirius XM.
Boomer.
Every single morning. The Oklahoma great with us now. What is up, Dusty? How are you?
Doing great, boys. I mean, week 13. How the heck did we get here, man? It's great to see you guys.
It's good to see you. We wish it would slow down. I know you do as well. It flies by this time of year. Alabama in great position now to both play in the SEC championship and make the college football playoff. They got to make a road trip to Oklahoma. I just said the point spread is 13.5. When you look at these two teams on film, does Alabama appear to be a 2-touchdown better team than Oklahoma to you?
I just want to say thank you for you guys not just starting off just by clobbering me in my alma mater and what's been a struggling, trying year number one in the SEC. I mean, you guys love the wisecracks, and I think that myself and many people around here, maybe even you guys, thought be a better year number one. I'm not surprised by the point spread. I think it's warranted. I thought when the point spread came out, it'd be around 2 touchdowns, if not higher. I really thought that people would be putting money on Bama around this number. I thought it would come above 14, and it's warranted. I do think it'll be a really good atmosphere in Norman on Saturday night. I think that they'll show up with Bama coming to town, and the Oklahoma defense at times this year has been really, really good. I think it's pretty safe to say you guys know the struggles and the issues this offense has had this year at offensive line, at quarterback, inability to run the ball at times, and then the turnovers have been a really big issue. So, and I think that given where Alabama's at, really, when you look at the last 3 football games, the way that they've played, I mean, I know it was Mercer, but still they continue to play really well. Kane Womack's got to be fired up about the way his defense is playing. I think Lawson and Campbell are playing really good at the second level. And I believe, and you guys are better at math than me, but I think they're +9 in the turnover margin the last 3 games. And for me in this game, that's just an area that it's a non-negotiable for Oklahoma. They have no chance if they can't win the turnover battle. They've got to take care of the football against a Bama defense that's forcing takeaways, and they've got to find a way to take the ball away from Jalen Milroe and this offense that I believe has found its identity in running the football and leaning on their quarterback as kind of the head of that snake.
Hey, back to the Oklahoma offense. Jackson Arnold, I think he's an unknown. Like, before the season, I thought he could be a special quarterback. I still think he can be. He's been sacked 29 times, 214 attempts. So I guess a 2-part question here. Is it really unfair to judge Jackson right now with that offensive line, with the injuries to the wide receiver position? And the second part, what really has happened to this offensive line? I mean, they won the Joe Moore Award, I think, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and they've got one of the absolute best offensive line coaches in the country. Bill Bedenbaugh is respected by people in college, by people in the NFL. I'm sure if you guys had, anybody that talks offensive line on, they would tell you the exact same. They lost 4 starters from a year ago, and they've dealt with some injuries as well. 2 of their offensive tackles, Jacob Sexton, Jake Taylor, they've been out for the season. They had another one of their interior offensive linemen be out for a bulk of the year. So look, everybody deals with injuries. They just didn't have the depth. And a couple of guys they brought in via the transfer portal didn't necessarily hit, and it's just been a compounding problem. They've had, a couple of moments. I thought there was a little bit against Ole Miss. They did a couple of things right in the first half, and then the second half that they give up in that game. I think it was some obscene number of sacks. I think that Ole Miss actually just got Jackson Arnold again. It's a combination of a lot of things. Receivers, as you touched on, the injuries have been an issue. They have not been able to run the football effectively this year. So, it's one thing in a perfect world for Jackson Arnold coming into the season. This would be a team that was, led by their defense. You run the football, you take some of that pressure off a young freshman quarterback. And oh, by the way, he's at least got some weapons that can win outside. Well, none of those boxes checked. And oh, by the way, you fire your offensive coordinator after South Carolina. So the quarterback development piece hasn't been there. I do think Jackson Arnold, it's fair to say that all those things around him weren't as good as we expected or they should have been. He was not given a great opportunity to thrive and succeed. And then obviously he lost his starting job, and you brought in Michael Hawkins halftime at Tennessee, and you got a glimpse of him until he couldn't help but turn the ball over against South Carolina. And he's a true freshman. So I don't think for either one of these guys, you really know what you have at the quarterback spot. And that's going to be one of the biggest keys as soon as this season ends. And as Brent Venables hires his new offensive coordinator, what that coordinator is going to have to assess, going to have to look at and see exactly what do we have in that quarterback room, and what pieces do we need to add to help those players thrive and succeed moving forward.
First of all, we're saving the wisecracks for next time Danny's on the show for the 1-9 Seminoles. That'll be perfect. We're saving for that.
Hey,
yeah.
I was going to say real quick, that is the one nice thing about going to work each morning. As bad as it is in Norman, it's way worse in Tallahassee. So.
Absolutely. And you talked about Alabama's offensive identity, finding that again. And I think that's the answer Alabama fans are still asking themselves. Between the Georgia game and the LSU game, what happened in between? You had a chance to come to Tuscaloosa, call an Alabama game in those tweener games. In your opinion, what do you think happened between Georgia and LSU where Alabama lost their identity offensively?
It's a really good question. And I don't know this. I didn't see him on an injury report. Jalen Milroe looked a little bit worn to me. He didn't look like he had that burst that I saw, especially against LSU. I thought the bye week really did him well before the LSU game. I thought against Missouri, obviously they had the takeaways, and they really just decided to commit to the run game. And it wasn't just him. It was, Jam Miller. It was Justice Haynes. I don't know, because going back to the opener in the game that I had, this offensive staff, they knew personnel, everything about this was different than they had at Washington. Okay. They were very upfront. We had that conversation, and, I remember talking with Nick Sheridan, and he's like, we're going to lean into Jalen Milroe as a runner, as an athlete. And we're going to allow him to, really lean on his strengths as a player and, take some off his plate, maybe even as a thrower. And I just think that they weren't able to up front, I think, is where I've seen an improvement. I think that the offensive line's just doing a better job, which they should. I didn't understand there for a while in the season why they weren't running the football more effectively. Like when you look at the way those guys are, I mean, they got physical guys up front. Like I really like the offensive line heading into the season, especially from being able to line up and move people off the football. And I know that this scheme schematically, it's a little bit different than what they were doing, but I think that O-line has really come together. And I think that just from a play calling standpoint, especially when the games work out, that, you can call a smarter game. I also thought, just like going back to the LSU game, like the game plan, like it was getting the ball to the backs. It was tight ends. It was screens. It was quarterback run, Q counter, read zone, just getting out of the pocket. I think that the staff is really honed in on what can we call, what can we do to really allow Jalen to be comfortable, to thrive. And I think, as much as anything, just prevent the negative play, the catastrophic play. And it's been smart. Why did it take so long to get there? You'd have to talk to Kalen DeBoer about that. But I think the most important piece, and why I'd be excited if I'm an Alabama fan, they have seemed to figure it out at the right time, and they're in perfect position to still achieve every single goal that they had set forth before the season started.
Bigger picture, Brent Venables, year 1, 6-7, it's year 1. I thought he did a tremendous job with a lot of pressure last year, winning 10 games. This year, as you said, we've talked about 1-5 in the SEC, 5-5 overall, hasn't been good. He's dealing with a lot of stuff, including his wife's cancer coming back. That was made public again this week. So he gets the vote of confidence. He will be back. I think we all agree he should be back. But big picture, what is that approval rating right now with Sooner Nation? And does Venables seem like he's going to be a long-term fit?
It's mixed. It's a fair question. It's mixed. I think there's some of the fan base that would say, hey, you got to move on, rip the Band-Aid off. I think that there's more in the fan base that want to see him have another opportunity to get this thing right. I fall in that camp. I'm self-admittedly biased. I mean, he was a man who recruited me and I played for, and I've got a very strong relationship with, and I believe in Brent Venables. But, they're going to have to, he's got to get this hire right, man. Like, let's just be honest. They've got to get, I think the defense is in a pretty good spot. They have not been elite this year, but they've been good. They've been good enough to win more games than they've won. And I don't think that's going away. They've recruited at a high level over there. And I feel good about the path forward of the defense. You got to get this hire right. And there's a lot of names out there. We can go down. Is it Ben Arbuckle? Is it Joe Craddock? Is it, you try to reach out to Shanahan in Indiana? I'm sure that they're going to vet and they're going to go after several different candidates. I don't necessarily have one that I say, you got to go get him. He is the guy. I just know that you got to get this one right. Because if they don't, and that offense doesn't get improved significantly immediately, it's going to get uncomfortable. And I think that Coach Venables knows that as well as anybody. So I don't think that he would shy away from that. And I think that everybody recognizes this is a very critical moment for Oklahoma football. And, getting that offensive component right is a huge piece. I think also just overall, just from a roster standpoint, getting that offensive line right, with your NIL dollars, are you allocating all those in the right place? I'm asking the questions. I don't know this, but you got to make sure, as you guys know, no different than an NFL team with these collectives and the way you balance your budget, right? You've got X amount of dollars. How are you allocating that? Is there too much on defense? Is it the right spots on offense? And only those guys inside, that collective and who's making those calls and those decisions on where you're allocating money know the right answers. But I definitely know that getting the coaching hire right is of the utmost importance. And I think addressing some personnel issues on that side of the ball are as well. If you can't block people, you can't establish your run or protect quarterbacks. I don't really care who you have back there. It's going to be difficult. And I know that they've got a really good offensive line coach. I'd be surprised if we don't see them really try to upgrade that personnel in conjunction with this new offensive coordinator.
Dusty Dvoracek with us. You see him on ESPN, hear him on Sirius XM. You just did the Florida Gators. You've seen Ole Miss recently. Ole Miss goes to Florida. It's an improving Florida team, but it seems like an Ole Miss team playing at their peak. Is that a trouble spot for the Rebs, you think?
I think it could be. I think that a couple things with this. By the way, that was my first time to get the full dose of the swamp.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that place was on fire Saturday night.
And that was a 4-5 team.
Yeah.
On fire, boys. That was awesome. That was big time. I give it up to the Gators fans for, even during a season that was subpar, for being there and showing up. That was big. The Tom Petty fourth quarter, goosebumps, yes. Boys. Yeah. I mean, big time stuff. So the venues going to the SEC, I've done 9 SEC games this year. They've been off the charts. So people mock it, people make fun of it. It really does mean more in the Southeastern Conference, and those venues, I think, reflect that each and every Saturday. I think Auburn this weekend is going to be incredible Saturday night for A&M. As far as this game goes, though, to get to your question, I think Florida's a pretty good team. I know that sounds crazy. Go back and watch the Tennessee game. I'm not. You can't convince me if Graham Mertz doesn't get hurt, they don't win that game. Go to the Georgia game. When DJ Lagway went down the second quarter, they're up a touchdown. Go watch the film. Tell me that Florida wasn't every bit as good up until that point when Aiden Warner had to come in on the field with Georgia. And we obviously saw what happened the other night against LSU. They played extremely well. That offensive line's playing with physicality. DJ Lagway, getting himself right to play gave that team an extreme lift. And then the defense, Ron Roberts, minus the Texas game. And I don't want to say that they weren't trying. I think they knew when Lagway wasn't playing. They had several guys that were fringe. Could they go? Could they not go? I think they really geared up for these last 2 home games. And I think that the confidence they're going to have coming into this is going to be palpable. Now, the problem I would say for just to call for the upset on the show with you right here is Ole Miss saw that game. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin are going to be prepared. They got an entire week extra of preparation. Trey Harris is probable now. I believe Lane Kiffin said yesterday it's the healthiest his team has been maybe all season. And it's very clear what's in front of them. And oh, by the way, when you go back to the Arkansas game and then what they did against Georgia, they're playing their best brand of football at the right time. Ole Miss is clearly the more talented, better team. I think they handle their business and win. I don't think it's going to be easy, though. I expect Florida to put up a fight. And would it shock me if I'm tuning in as I'm up in the booth getting ready for my game and this is a game that's in question in the fourth quarter? No, it's not going to shock me, but I do think we see Ole Miss in this spot as a double-digit favorite for a reason. I think that that defense in particular, I just think is as good a front as I've seen all year. The way they can create negative plays, and since Princely Umanmiele's come back, boys, that pass rush is ferocious. He's on a tear of 3 straight games with 2 sacks. That's going to be the biggest key. Can they protect DJ Lagway, who's still not 100%? If they can't, I definitely think Ole Miss can go in there and get a very nice victory before the Egg Bowl.
You will see Dusty on the Auburn-Texas A&M game. You see him throughout the Southeastern Conference. Dusty, thank you very much for the time.
I thought he had BYU Arizona State.
I thought you had Auburn-Texas A&M.
No. I don't. I will be in Tempe. I've got a Big 12 ditty.
My apologies.
That I think is one of the games of the weekend. No. I was just mentioning that SEC environment. I believe Lewis Riddick, Chris Budden will be there in Auburn, Alabama. I'm gonna be in Tempe, boys. I'm gonna tell you what. You want me to give you a sales pitch for one of the best games of the weekend? Arizona State, BYU picked 16 and 13 in their conference respectively. A game before the year nobody was paying attention to. This has as big a conference championship game and playoff implications as any game out there. So we're going to have some fun out in the desert on Saturday.
Yep. Yeah. My apologies. I had you in the wrong spot. Thank you for the time, Dusty. Always good talking with you.
See you, boys. Have a good one.